Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. For generations, the UVM Extension 4-H Youth Development Program has promoted learning by doing. The learning by doing model extends to 21st century learning in science, technology, engineering, and math. It's an approach that helps young people develop the knowledge and skills they need to become competent, caring, and contributing citizens. Across the Fence recently met more than 50 young Vermonters who were learning by doing in the 4-H Tech Wizards program. Keith Silva tells us more.
On the water.
Does everybody know about how long Lake Champlain might be?
And in the lab.
So that you're able to sort of like open the side of the fish.
Students from Linden Town School are getting up close and hands-on with Lake Champlain.
We learned how many different types of organisms are in Lake Champlain and how they work together in the food web.
I've been out on a boat before, but nothing really like this. I go out on like Crystal and Willoughby and stuff like that, but I've never been out on Lake Champlain.
This visit aboard University of Vermont's research vessel, the Melisira, and to UVM's Rubenstein Ecosystem Science Laboratory are part of the 4-H Tech Wizards program at Linden Town School. Lindsay Carpenter is the UVM Extension 4-H Tech Wizards Coordinator in St. Johnsbury.
So 4-H Tech Wizards is a federal grant that the university received about 7 years ago. It's supported by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. So it's actually a mentoring program for youth with a focus on giving those youth opportunities for hands-on learning with STEM education.
Rub it in your fingers.
Besides getting their hands dirty, Carpenter wants to provide students with an experience that lasts.
We're hoping that they're seeing some new things that they've never saw before, or they're seeing it in a different way that might entice their learning and their questions about this form of science. Maybe as they pursue their post-secondary plans, they think, well, hey, I did this really cool activity in 7th grade with UVM. I think I want to go explore that opportunity.
So can you all see something swimming around in there? You can? Yeah.
Amelia Tarrant of Lake Champlain Sea Grant puts the students to work as scientists.
We want students to be able to be exposed to lots of different aspects of the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So we look at not only how can we crunch the numbers, but how can we build the instruments that take those measurements that give us the numbers to crunch. Through the lens of experiential learning and science, we then are able to expose them to some of these science topics and give them ideas for their careers as they move on to high school and college.
Paul Choquette teaches 7th grade English at Linden Town School. As a part of the lessons he assigns, Choquette challenges students to think outside the classroom and their school.
We've done a lot of career exploration stuff through our PLPs, our personal learning plans. They don't have to leave the state in order to get some of these experiences that they're looking for, whether it's the research, whether it's even the mechanical engineer on the boat as far as the equipment goes. It shows them that it's available here in Vermont and that it's available through UVM or any of the other affiliate colleges. Because we live an hour and a half from Burlington, the kids don't typically get out here to see what's available. Just giving them an opportunity to explore what Vermont has available to us, as well as the really cool features of Vermont, whether it's through the Echo Lake Aquarium or the lab or just some culture stuff.
Remember Hannah? She said she'd never been on Lake Champlain. And after this experience, she thinks she could get used to having class outside.
I feel like I like being outside in a learning environment than in a classroom. I feel like it's easier to focus. Well, it makes it more interesting to look at. Like in a classroom, you don't really see as much stuff.
For Max McClure, being outside means being hands-on.
It's better to do hands-on because then you have the experience with it and you have more knowledge about it. And I actually get to see it instead of using pictures and images and stuff like that. So it's better to see and actually hands-on activities.
The wind kept stripping heat out of the lake.
Having this experience gives McClure a glimpse at what he'd like to do in the future.
I want to do something with biology when I'm older, so it's really cool to learn about this and have the experience.
For McClure, Jewel, and their classmates, this experience is turning out to be a great teacher.
Well, we've been out here on Lake Champlain. Another group of Linden students has been in the lab. Let's join Becky Gollin and find out what they're looking at.
Here in the lab, students are getting a first-hand look at fish anatomy, from the outside in.
If you see that little hole in the bottom of the fish, that's called the vent.
You have to cut through the fish a certain way in order to get it out and separated. So you have to cut from the bottom of the fish and go up to about its mouth and then make a T from that, and you can pull it out separately.
Adelia Griffith is describing the technique for removing the fish's stomach. She and her classmates are examining the contents, looking for tiny pieces of plastic.
They were able to dissect smelt as a part of an ongoing citizen science project we have that is trying to figure out if there are microplastics turning up in the stomachs of some of the smaller fish, if they're mistaking them for plankton, and kind of how they're affecting the food chain in that way.
Learning about how the microscopic pieces wind up in the lake was eye-opening for these students.
I haven't heard about these things until today, and I just learned that fleece has those microscopic plastics, and when you wash your fleece, it gets all washed out. That's how it ends up in the fish.
Seeing the microplastics in the fish tells all of us that if you have the micro beads that are in your soap and you wash that down the drain, it does become a part of Lake Champlain and other bodies of water, and that gets into the fish body.
It definitely has a very small brain. I mean, if you look at it in relation to the other organs, it's pretty tiny.
From the lab,
if you look at a lot of these little...
to the lake, the goal of the day is for students to gain a new appreciation for science after experiencing it outside of the classroom.
They're just learning about our local waterway and different species that live in there and what they can do as young learners to either get their hands dirty and involved and maybe extend their learning in this realm of science, or maybe it's a branch onto something else. So just to sort of expand their learning, get them out of the Northeast Kingdom, bring them to this city that we have in Vermont.
There's kind of two things that are happening during our programs. One is the environmental literacy, so learning about some of the different watershed topics, concerns, emergent pollutants, but then also learning about what are the potential careers in STEM that these students could pursue, and thinking outside the traditional white lab coat and looking at, okay, what does a field researcher really do? What is it really like to work in a lab? And what is it like to just be interested in the natural environment and ask questions and try and figure out the answers?
For teachers at Linden Town School, the trip fits in with their emphasis on science.
We have a huge push in our school for the science curriculum, and also we really want to get our kids out in the community and just know what Vermont has to offer, and kids don't get from our side of the state too often to Burlington, and the opportunity to not only get out on the research vessel and do the work, the dissections in the lab and the echo was really a fantastic opportunity.
So a watershed is basically what I like to think of as like a nested system. So it's the way the water moves from the highest points to the lowest points. So
if you get them in 7th grade and say, hey, yeah, you can totally come to the university lab and dissect a fish, or go on the university's research vessel and learn about that equipment when you're 12. And then, hey, the even cooler thing, you can come back here when you're 18 and attend the University of Vermont. It's possible for all students, even our rural Northeast Kingdom students.
As these middle schoolers begin to think about their futures, this chance to learn about lake ecology from the scientists studying it is a new kind of opportunity. And it's one that's sure to leave a lasting impression, as will the stories about how things, both small and large, can end up in the lake.
Did it change the way that you look at the lake?
Yes, a lot, actually. It changed. Well, they were talking about how one day she said that when they were trying to catch some fish, they caught something heavy and they tried to pull it up and they found a snowmobile in the lake. And that changed my perspective on how stuff ends up in the water.
water is a part of everything that we do, whether you're drinking it, whether you're using it to recreate, whether it's just, being pumped out of your house to wastewater treatment facilities. It's a part of our world every day. And so I think just to kind of having the literacy to be able to understand those connections will help them just become better citizens, I think, in the state of Vermont.
Teaching students to be better citizens by giving them the tools to be scientists and taking them on a field trip to remember. In Burlington, I'm Rebecca Gullen with Across the Fence.
Tech Wizards is sponsored by the 4-H National Mentoring Program and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. The goal? To improve outcomes for at-risk and underserved youth and to reduce school dropouts through mentoring. Joining me now is Ellen Roe. Ellen is an extension specialist in the community and leadership development, and she leads the Tech Wizards program. Boy, that's great stuff. Thanks for coming in.
Yes, pleasure.
And so we saw on the field trip that it's a great experience for the young people and their mentors, but how does the trip fit into the larger program?
Each year we focus on a STEM topic, and this year we are using a national 4-H curriculum called There's No New Water. And it has lots of activities in it, and we bring those into the classroom and have the youth participate with those. And it is a watershed, water quality topic. And what's really important is that it pushes a concept of the fact that water is non-renewable. It is a finite natural resource, and it takes the responsibility of humans to preserve and protect it, to be used and reused.
And probably in a way that these kids never even thought about before.
Correct.
And so the video showed some hands-on activity work in the lab and on the research vessel. How do you address some of the hands-on focus in the classroom?
Well, I brought along some materials from an activity called Going with the Flow.
Okay.
And it starts with a 12-inch piece of aluminum foil. And we're just going to loosely crumple this up and then spread it out to about its same dimensions. And as you can see, we have some peaks and some valleys. So what we ask the children to do is to take a permanent marker and just pick a peak and figure out where might the water go if it had a steady rain on it.
Okay.
So they would then mark where they think that water's going to go. So that's the prediction piece. And then they get to take a spray bottle, which is a lot of fun, and place it about 10 to 12 inches above the foil. And then give it about 10 squirts, which would give you a simulation of a rainstorm, a good heavy soak. And then they observe where the water actually flowed. So it sort of reinforces what they saw on the boat, try to figure out how things large and small end up in the lake.
And so what does it teach them as far as, obviously there's gravity, but then, other things are involved as well?
Well, we learn about the landforms. What's there that causes the water to flow off or to remain there? It could be a bog that would soak up water. It could be, and we're talking about taking this back to the Passumpsic River Basin where they live. And what is it that they do or that their school has that would affect how that water would flow to the Passumpsic River Basin and how it would affect it?
So they look at their local, topography and see what they have around them, and probably, for the first time consider, wonder what happens when water goes through here.
Right, absolutely. So what we then do is just sort of process this with them. How close was your prediction to what happened here? And what does that teach you about the water flow and how we can conserve that water for its use again?
And also where it may end up.
That's right. And what kind of quality that water turns out to be. Yeah.
And so obviously too, talking to students about what the future may hold for them if they're interested in this kind of thing.
And we hope that STEM has a lot of interesting careers, and we hope that some of this stuff latches on. But even if it doesn't, if they simply learn to apply it in their own community, we have reached our goal.
And so how can viewers learn more about Tech Wizards and the 4-H's focus on science, technology, engineering, and math?
On the Extension website at uvm.edu/extension/youth/wizards will take you to the Tech Wizard website.
Alrighty. Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
A pleasure.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.